Hello everyone! Welcome to Untold History, where we explore significant and often overlooked historical events. Today we head to North Africa to look at the Egyptian Revolution of 2011, a pivotal moment in recent history that marked the start of the Arab Spring and had a profound impact on the future of Egypt and the region. As of January 2011, Egypt was ruled by Hosni Mubarak, who had been in power for nearly 30 years since 1981. His regime, an authoritarian government, was known for its corruption, political repression, and systematic human rights violations. During his tenure, Mubarak had consolidated his power by cracking down on opposition, manipulating elections, and implementing a state of emergency that suspended many of the fundamental civil liberties. Although the country had experienced economic growth, wealth was poorly distributed and poverty was rampant. More than a third of the population lived on less than $2 a day, and unemployment, especially among young people, was very high. A lack of civil liberties and police brutality also fueled discontent among the population, who saw little hope for improvement under Mubarak's regime. On January 25, 2011, coinciding with National Police Day, a group of young Egyptian activists, inspired by the uprisings in Tunisia that had led to the fall of President Ben Ali, called for a protest in Tahrir Square in Cairo. This event, dubbed the Day of Rage, was organized through social media, using platforms such as Facebook and Twitter, which had gained popularity among Egyptian youth. Protests were not only an outcry against Mubarak's authoritarian rule, but also a response to police brutality, epitomized by Khaled Said, a young man whose death at the hands of police in 2010 became a symbol of state repression. The demonstrations on January 25 marked the start of a series of mass protests across the country, which quickly spread to other cities such as Alexandria, Suez, and Mansoura. The demonstrators, composed of a wide range of social sectors from students and workers to intellectuals and ordinary citizens, demanded an end to Mubarak's regime, political reforms, and improved living conditions. Their demands included the repeal of the state of emergency, freedom of the press, respect for human rights, and the creation of a more inclusive and democratic political system. During the first few weeks, the protests grew in both size and intensity. Egyptians faced violent repression by the government, which used tear gas, rubber bullets, and live fire to disperse protesters. In addition, access to the internet and mobile communications was cut off in an attempt to stifle the coordination of the protests, which only served to increase popular outrage. However, the resistance in Tahrir Square was unwavering. The images of this and the solidarity among citizens, broadcast by television channels such as Al Jazeera, became a global symbol of the struggle for democracy. Tahrir Square became the epicenter of the revolution, a space of resistance where people camped, organized assemblies, and faced repression. On February 11, 2011, after 18 days of intense protests and clashes, Mubarak announced his resignation. This news was greeted with jubilation in Tahrir Square and across Egypt, where millions of people celebrated what appeared to be the end of an era of repression and corruption. Mubarak handed over power to the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces (SCAF), led by Mohammed Hussein Tantawi, marking the beginning of a political transition process full of uncertainties. However, Mubarak's fall did not end the challenges facing the country. Although the dictator's resignation was a triumph for the revolutionary movement, the transition to democratic rule proved to be complex and difficult. The SCAF, which took power temporarily, pledged to transition to civilian rule, but tensions between the military and civilians began to rise. Protests continued as many Egyptians feared that the military would try to perpetuate its control over the country, leading to additional clashes and growing distrust of promises of reform. The revolution led to presidential elections in 2012, which resulted in the victory of Mohammed Morsi, leader of the Muslim Brotherhood, in an election that was considered free and fair. Morsi became Egypt's first democratically elected president, which was seen as a milestone in the country's history. However, his tenure was fraught with controversies and challenges. He faced accusations of authoritarianism and corruption, and was criticized for his inability to address the economic and social problems that had motivated the revolution. His attempt to consolidate power through decrees expanding his presidential prerogatives sparked new waves of protests, this time led by those who feared the country was being led into a new kind of dictatorship, this time under Islamist control. In July 2013, the army intervened again, this time under the leadership of General Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, who ousted Morsi in a coup backed by a significant part of the population, which was unhappy with the direction of the country under Muslim Brotherhood rule. Coup was followed by a brutal crackdown on supporters of Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood, including the massacre of protesters in Rabah Square, where hundreds of people were killed by security forces. Sisi, who had been appointed defense minister by Morsi, consolidated his power and became president in 2014, after an election that was criticized for a lack of real competition and a crackdown on the opposition. The impact of the Egyptian revolution has been profound and complex. While the revolt succeeded in toppling a longtime dictator, the country has continued to face significant challenges, including political instability, repression of opposition, and economic crises. Under Sisi's leadership, Egypt has reverted to authoritarian rule, with severe restrictions on freedom of expression, mass arrests of opponents, and increasing militarization of the economy. Despite this, the revolution left a lasting legacy in the collective consciousness of Egyptians and the Arab world in general. The Arab Spring, of which Egypt was a key player, inspired similar movements in other parts of the Arab world, albeit with mixed results. Some countries, such as Syria and Libya, were plunged into devastating civil wars, while others, such as Tunisia, achieved a more peaceful transition to democracy. Globally, this event remains a reminder of the struggle for democracy and justice in a context of authoritarianism and corruption. The images of Tahrir Square, filled with ordinary citizens demanding their rights, resonated around the world and served as an inspiration for social movements in other regions. However, it is also an example of the challenges inherent in revolutionary processes, where initial euphoria can give way to disillusionment if power structures do not change in fundamental ways. Thank you for joining us in this new episode, for your support, and for being part of this community of history lovers. If you liked the video, don't forget to like it and share it with those who you think would also enjoy exploring these crucial chapters of the story. See you in the next episode of Untold Story.